For the person that's listening right now who's still on the fence about quitting drinking because life does not look bad enough yet, what do you wish that they knew?
You're gonna be all right if you keep making good decisions, keep listening to shows like this, keep absorbing more information and keeping your mind open to it, because you are so much further down the road than I was.
It doesn't serve a purpose, and it doesn't have to completely ruin your life for it not to serve a purpose. And so if it doesn't serve a purpose and it's not propelling you forward, it's not making you faster and more aerodynamic in life, set it aside for a while. Give it a try, see what it feels like, engage with other people who are doing the same here, right? We have our Monday night Zooms and we talk like this for more time, like stuff like that. Give it a try.
So when you drink, you just close the door on all of these opportunities. You shut down all of these possibilities that you don't even know exist yet. I think sometimes we keep drinking because we're like, yeah, but I mean, even if I quit drinking, it's not going to be that good, right? Like, here's this thing that I imagine. This is the life that I imagine without alcohol. Like, that's not that good either. You have no idea. Your brain is not capable of imagining things that it simply doesn't know exists.
The longer you wait, the longer you delay meeting the future version of yourself that is going to be proud of what you did. The future version of you is waiting for you to put it down, and that's why you're here. Welcome to No Alcohol Needed, the podcast. You're hanging out at the intersection of emotional wellness, personal growth, and living an alcohol-free life. Here we share everything we've learned and continue to learn about how to be happy, no alcohol needed.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to No Alcohol Needed, the podcast. We are so happy that you are hanging out with us today. We've got Mike and Amber hanging out. If you guys have not met Mike and Amber yet, make sure you go to the website, noalcoholneeded.net, click on Meet the Voices, and you can meet these folks, meet everybody on the team. We would love to have you get to know them and see the things they're doing in this amazing space. So make sure you check that out. We are going to jump right into our topic, our episode today. How do you know if you actually need to quit drinking? It's a question we get asked a lot because we talk to a lot of people that are like right on the edge. They drink more than they wish they did, but it's not really causing any major consequences in their lives. So it seems like it's silly to have to quit something that makes it feel like it makes life fun and interesting. But then there's like this little voice in your head that's like, maybe you need to look a little closer at that. So if this sounds like you're in the right place. We're going to dig into all of that today. I'm going to throw a curveball at Mike and Amber really quick. And I'm going to ask you guys, how do you feel about the term functional alcoholic or functioning alcoholic? Because like that is going to be the most searched term here for this particular episode. Also, it's a term that really offends some people. So can we just like talk about it and see where you guys stand and what your thoughts are?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking around me right now just to give a hit, because my notebook, I have a picture drawn that really does a great job of illustrating what it is, and it's a unicorn.
And
with
it's
the
a
term
unicorn.
functional addict written on it. So I don't think that is a pretty good statement of how I feel about that.
Are you sure it's not a bison?
I mean, I don't know who.
I'm just
Pegasus.
For our listeners, Mike's background is a picture of a bison. So if you hop on YouTube, you would see the bison in his background. That's why I did that. Are you sure it's not a bison?
I was like, what? That didn't even register. I'm not gonna lie.
What a guy.
I was reading an article a few days ago actually, and there was like a sentence that kind of jumped out at me. I mean, I personally think functioning alcoholic, I don't necessarily think it's a label as it is describing there's a spectrum when it comes to alcohol abuse. I mean, drug use is pretty blatant, pretty in your face. Alcohol use can vary from destitute, the most, I don't even want to say severe because it's all severe in its own right. But, when you think of homeless and jobless and, having lost everything, there's that end of the spectrum when it comes to alcohol use. And then there's high functioning. It's similar to being on an autistic spectrum disorder or any other spectrum of
Mhm.
things, where there's a sort of, oh, I had no idea, and oh, it's very clear, spectrum. But I did read this one sentence that said, if high functioning were a sport, many people would look like elite performers, but most are exhausted athletes running on borrowed strength. Um, and yeah,
Well said. Yeah, that's very well said. I
yeah.
I I dig it for
And
sure.
so that to me kind of like hit it right. Like it's like on the
Mhm.
outside, yes, you're performing, you're hitting your numbers, you're making, you're hitting your metrics. On the inside, everything is on fire.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
One thing I definitely have to disagree with you, Amber, as far as the delineation between alcohol and other drugs. I, I don't even know which way to choose to quantify it, but the spectrum of like functionality in the way that we're using it, which I'm very much using in air quotes, and I'll explain why. The level of functionality with different kinds of chemical dependencies, it's not independent of the drug of abuse. The acuity can vary based on the person. I think just based on all the factors that go into addiction. Uh, but I mean, some of the most destitute situations I've seen are the result of alcohol. If the listeners don't know, alcohol was not a use of my, it was not my drug of abuse. Mine, I was addicted to opioids for 14 years, in which I was an NFL and college football coach and viewed to be very much. It wasn't until my secret came out after 14 years that that label was ever applied to me. Function.
Mhm.
I, this came up with a client the other day. Extremely high functioning addict is what I've read. I remember the first time I went to treatment on. I I joked about the unicorn thing, but I really do just reject that label. If it's a matter of semantics, it's not like I, pick on it anytime it's used, but I just don't believe on it in it at all as an actual label because it's just contradictory to me,
Mhm.
based on my definition of functionality.
Yeah.
I,
No, I
I,
I get that. Oh, go ahead, Steve.
No, you can go.
I was just gonna say, like, I think, you think you're functioning until you stop, and then you were like, "Oh, I wasn't functioning." I think that when we're talking to especially our audience, just the term alcoholic rubs people the wrong way. There's an awful lot of people that are like, I'm functioning, I drink more than I want to, that's it. Like, I'm not an alcoholic, I don't really have a problem. It's kind of just too much of a habit, or, it's this thing I do because I don't know what else to do, and I just do it for fun because I like it. And so I think the term alcoholic in general gets a little bit offensive depending on who we're speaking to. And so I guess the one point that I want to make, if we start using words like functional alcoholic on this episode, it's just a term. It can apply to you in whatever way you want it to, or it can, maybe not. We're just talking about people who are drinking more than they feel like they should, and they're also not experiencing dire, massive consequences in their life. So I guess I want to just define that for our listeners. If you hate the word alcoholic, that's cool. I don't really like it either. It's also just an easy term to use that most people understand what we're talking about. And people, like, that's what they Google, right? Like, people are literally Googling, am I a functioning alcoholic? And so, to some extent, we have to use some of those terms so we reach the
oh,
people that are
sure.
looking for the help and the content that we're providing. So yeah, Steve, what
Yeah.
did you have?
Well, I mean, functional alcoholic, uh, high functioning drinker.
Yeah.
Same thing. I'm saying the same. I'm essentially
Right.
saying the same thing, other than I'm saying I'm addicted to alcohol by saying alcoholic, or a high functioning drinker is I drink and I still function at a high level. I
Mhm.
mean, if I'm going to look at my own situation here. When I looked at this, and because I remember thinking this, like I would show up to work drunk and still get all of my stuff done, and w- the way Mike described it too, like it is a contradictory term. If I have to drink to function, I'm not really functioning.
right,
I'm not
right.
functioning near at my optimum capacity or anywhere close. That's the tank running on empty. I'm running on 20, and I'm just used to running on 20. and functioning at 20. And that's still me high functioning. I'm still getting all my stuff done. I'm still making it to work. I'm still not calling in sick. I'm still getting, you know, everything done in life. So I clearly don't have a problem. That was how I looked at it too, because nothing was falling apart. And if nothing was falling apart, then it allowed me to justify my drinking not being a problem.
Mhm.
I think that's what it came down to. So, because of that, I would say, you know, I'm a high functioning drinker. Absolutely. That was I called myself that
Mm.
silently because I would never
Exactly.
say that out loud.
Right.
Yeah, I could talk about it now, but back then, no. But that was the lie I told myself to keep things going.
Well, and to some extent, aren't you kind of expected to be a high functioning drinker in today's society? Like, it depends on the circles that you run in, but a lot of people, like, it's kind of expected in our society that you're able to drink and you're able to hang
Mhm.
with, but also you're expected to keep it all together. So I think in some ways that gets a little bit tricky. And, like the first question I was actually going to ask you guys before I threw the curveball at you was like, why is it so easy to convince yourself you don't really have a problem? And I feel like most of us have answered that, like, because we haven't life isn't falling apart. We're looking around, we feel quote unquote fine. Like Steve said, you're operating at 20, but you don't know any different. So you feel like you're doing great. And I think that for a lot of people, it's almost like you're expected to be able to drink, be able to go out at night, to be able to party, to be able to, whatever. And then also keep up all your responsibilities and maintain your relationships and all of that. Like it's expected. So it's almost, I don't know, it's a tough one. And it depends on who you spend your time with. But I think a lot of us found ourselves in that place.
I mean,
Um,
even just to our listeners, how many times have you had a rough night, got up in the morning, and then still got everything done the next day?
mhm,
And you're like, well, I'm going to have a rough morning, but I've clearly shown myself that I can accomplish all the things that I needed to accomplish the next day.
Mhm.
right.
And then do that so many times that just becomes fairly normal. And then eventually one thing slips,
Mhm,
a responsibility that you took on and you had a rough night and either forgot it or missed showing up to it or made up an excuse so you didn't have to go to it because you didn't feel quite right in the morning or lied just so you didn't have to go and drag ass through something.
right. And that kind of takes us into our next question. So, how did you first start noticing that something was off? Even before everything was totally unmanageable, what were some of the first signs that you're like, okay, I need to look a little closer at what's going on here?
Well, for me, again, the functionality piece is so important to define, and I understand that people may have different interpretations of functionality. Like Steve said, like you've gotten everything done. You got everything done. But and then like Julie, you previously said, like delineating the term, saying, I do what I want, but I get everything done. Or I'm drinking more than I want to, and that's a problem. Okay, so for me, if you are doing something that is bad for your health, mental and physical, and whether it's reached the point of having any consequences in your professional life, which is really the thing that we're talking about when we say functioning, it's kind of the way that the term success gets applied to professions. That indicates to me a disconnect in that person's definition of functionality, or success for that matter. So I I I find it to be a dangerous term because of what Steve's talking about, as it being such a ubiquitous tool for rationalization. Most people
Hmm.
in their uh, progressive addiction, or alcoholism, come to a point where we tell ourselves we are we grasp onto that That's probably why some people are Googling that term and maybe even finding this episode. And I'm not answering your question directly, I apologize, but if they are, I think that is indicative of something worth examination right there. For me, that is to preface that and actually answer your question. For me, it showed up just like that. I could no longer maintain this coping mechanism, whether it be chemical use or whatever, this group of coping mechanisms that were very bad for my health and what I consider to be like the quick like litmus test of what's important in life. Are you happier, healthier, more use to the people around you? That became an obvious no for me at a certain point. And that's when it became something I couldn't really ignore and believed I had to address. But I have to just recognize that the idea of functionality was, I don't blame anyone else for this but myself, was so undermining to me
Mhm.
finally being able to make the progress that I could because of me, because of my responsibility for empowering it to make me feel justified in these ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I take total responsibility for it, but that's why, like, clinically, that term I reject it as a term.
Hmm. Yeah, I get that.
I think it, like you said, Mike, like it's so unique to the individual, but also right because it's so easy to rationalize your level of function, and a lot of that comes with comparison. For me, it was like comparison to others. Comparison to my mother, like growing up with an alcoholic mother, and wanting to be anything but her when I grew up. And that was a constant driving force for me, where I was like, well, I don't do this or I'm not like this. So I'm okay, and also on a social context, right? You are surrounding yourself with other people who have also accepted this level of function. Um, and so to call your friends in that group and be like, yo, I can't make it to this thing this morning. I'm so sorry, but I am hung over as hell. They're like, oh man, yeah, me too. I get it. Like it becomes this acceptable thing to be hungover, and like not, do things. And then of course, depending on what the event is, you're not gonna say, I'm hungover and I can't go to your wedding or your baby shower or whatever. But to some friends you would, right? You're like, "Yeah, I just couldn't go to that. Like, I was just so hungover." And they're like, "Yeah, man, I get it." And then you go out and you drink that night and you do the same thing over. It's just,
Right.
or the level of function where, you just it's the denial, of the absolute denial of the things going on in your life. Because from the outside looking in, you're not really functioning. But you believe that you are. You 100% believe that you are
Oh
based
yeah.
on the comparison you make to others and to their usage of whatever substance or whatever life choices they're making, and you're like, I mean, yeah, I should probably cut back a little, because I'm kind of tired of being, maybe I'm a little more tired than I want and I'm a little foggy. There's also a plethora of other excuses as to why you're tired and why you can't think straight. And, it's stress and it's this and it's that. And it's never, ever the alcohol, no
Right.
matter what. Uh,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. When I think back to like when it was like the little signals that something's not quite right. But, I really did function well for a long time. Mine, I'm not going to say I was professional. I was a stay at home mom. So that was where I was functioning. But I was kicking ass. I was running a farm. I was homeschooling kids. I had 3 meals on the table and the house was clean and it looked phenomenal on the outside. I was functioning. And I was keeping up all the responsibilities that I would have been expected to keep up. And I was keeping them up probably even at a higher level than was necessary, probably to make up for some of the guilt. But when I look back, I remember like drinking a little too much the night before. And I would put my kids to bed and then I would drink some wine and it was like a glass or two. And then eventually, like I remember the first time I drank a bottle of wine at night after my kids were in bed and I woke up and I felt horrible the next day. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I drank so much. Like how'd that happen? It went so fast. And, that was before I would have ever thought, oh, there's a problem here. But then I remember, over time, that happened more and more often. Most nights it would be like one glass. And then every 3 or 4 or 5 nights, it might be a whole bottle. And then it got to be like a whole big bottle. And, but it happened so slowly. And then I remember when I was like, it was like 2 nights in a row. And I woke up in the morning. I'm like, I can't keep doing this. I can't function this way and take care of these kids this way. Like I have to stop drinking. And I totally believed I could stop drinking. I didn't think there was no question that I was like, okay, I'm doing too much of this and I need to stop. And so then I didn't drink that night. And by the second night, it was like that's all I could think about. That's all I wanted was to drink again. And I was like, whoa, this is harder than it should be. I didn't think I'm not addicted. I'm just thinking about this way more than I thought I would. And I carried on in that state for probably 5 years of like, oh, this is actually harder than I thought it would be. There was never a thought in my mind like, I think I might be addicted to alcohol. It was just, oh, like, it sounds really good a lot. And so I want to drink more of it. But to put together like, oh, this is actually an issue, that took a really, really long time for me to finally be like, wait, I think this is a real problem in my life now. So that was one of the first things that I noticed early.
That part I can relate to is the piece where it just like the slippery slope. It's like, oh, I need to take a break because that morning was rough. Like I take a couple day break, and because I took a couple day break because physically I just couldn't do it anymore. I didn't want to do it anymore. You know what I mean? By the time the third day rolled around, and I'm like, I won't even drink today. I'd wake up in the morning because I feel better, right? I won't even drink today. And then by the time the afternoon comes, it's like, well, I feel better. I might as well have a drink.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, what's that?
The consequences momentarily gone.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I survived the consequence.
Yeah,
So I'm good to go again. And then it wouldn't take long until after that little break. And that break wasn't like an intentional, like I'm going to quit. It is just like, I got to let my body catch up. And then when I feel better, I'll carry on again. When it comes to, did it look unmanageable? If I admitted that I was unmanageable, then I was going to be admitting that I had a problem. And so to me, the justification of manageability changed to suit my needs. And it wasn't until other people found the courage to bring it up because they saw some unmanageability, essentially. And I mean, that's hard to do there too, but they saw something. I had a couple people, one specifically, I remember him approaching me at work when he found some time and asking me if I was all right and if I had a problem. And I did everything I could to defend it, even though there was, rumors or whatever. And I'm like, no, they're just making shit up because I pissed them off. Like I found an excuse for whatever I needed to find an excuse for at that time. But I mean, that was a clear sign that someone was showing care, not laying blame, and noticing that I wasn't managing stuff properly. Like if I'm showing up at work drunk or even after some drinks, like I'm really not managing life properly.
And having anybody say something to you like, hey, seems like you're kind of drinking an awful lot. Are you okay? that kind of thing. I think that's a huge red flag that like maybe I need to look at what's actually going on here. And so often we just brush it off and we're like, no, I'm fine. Like they're just crazy. I don't even know what their problem is. And it's not even that big of a deal. But like for people who are listening right now, if you've had some people approach you, I encourage you to just pause and look inward a little bit. Even if that means maybe having to see things you really don't want to see, because that's generally a hint that maybe things are a little less manageable than you think they are. And we talked a little bit about how, like there's maybe not been any huge consequences. That's why we call it functioning, right? Because we haven't experienced any big consequences. We haven't lost any really important things to us. And so it's easy to say we're functioning fine. What things does alcohol take away from you? Even though long before it takes away the big important things, what other things do you lose to drinking?
I think that's such a good question. That's just right at the heart of this, because like your last question, what did I first notice is so much different now with, hindsight, and being like,
Yes.
when did I really first notice? Kind of like
Hmm.
someone has a relapse. All right, well, you relapsed when you drank or whatever, but when did you really relapse? When was that decision made in your head? you know, and
Exactly.
I can look back now and see it's completely undeniable, like, that I was not living in accordance with the things in which I believe, which I kind of summarized very, very as succinctly as possible earlier. But my aim is to be a happy, healthy person of use and service of those around me. And I was compromising at first just many, many things like sleep, um, uh, just many health related things, I would say, where there's no way to rationalize that. Like, look, we know even in moderate amounts that alcohol is not healthy.
Hmm.
Uh, okay, we know that. So in chronically drinking is certainly very very much not healthy. So looking back, I see the first things I was giving up are um, the responsibility or idea of responsibility and care over my own health, my ability to be in certain places, because it really became about, in order to quote unquote function in the ways that other people would notice, i.e., working in a career and trying to ascend in that career, working crazy hours and things I thought were virtuous at the time. It became about that, and then protecting this more and more. It became about protecting that one coping mechanism. So it took away from, it started to just, and because it was a secret, it started to just eat up massive and massive amounts of time, that my life became even more um, just narrow, where it was work and it was coping and needing to get myself like isolated to a point. For you, it was when the kids went to sleep, you know, um, my version of that, basically creating opportunities for my version of the kids going to sleep to be able
Hmm.
to indulge the way I had. I mean, it was taking away from every area of my life, really. And certainly in the long run, I realized that way, 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 way before I noticed it impacting even any of these basic, what I would consider like superficial areas that we use to um, like name functionality. Way, way before that, I was compromising my entire soul for that
Yeah.
kind of, again, it's hard for me not to
Mhm.
make it sound melodramatic, but that's the truth. That's the
Hmm.
reality. I was
Oh, it's
putting it
very true.
everything
Yeah.
else in my life that I claimed and did love. I should say claim, but I don't mean to make it sound disingenuous, because I did and do
Hmm.
love those things. But I had a problem that was putting those things in front of it. And it wasn't in keeping it a secret like that, and being able to keep it a secret like that was very much to my detriment, because I got to see that play out. And, a lot longer than most people do, I think, because
Yeah.
outside consequences that intervene tend to come, and I was able to avoid those very well for too many years, that by the time it was not a secret, I'd had a seizure. And at that point, I just chose to start being kind of, at least more honest about what this behavior was, what
Mhm.
my behavior of chemical abuse was. And I as I got into early recovery, one of the things that I have maintained and that I've vowed to maintain is that if two or more people in my life of quote unquote this list, which includes some people in my life who I trust implicitly, if they express concern about something in my life, I am going to stop and fucking actually listen to it,
Yeah.
because people were saying things to me before that had every reason to have credibility to me, but I ignored. Again, why? Because I my safety and security was wrapped up in that coping mechanism. That coping mechanism became my security. So you
Mhm.
threaten that, now all of a sudden I feel like I'm in great danger.
I think that is a really great thing for our listeners to hold on to is who in your life do you really trust? Who do you know has your best interest in mind? What do those people say? What are those people asking you? Because those people are worth stopping and pausing and really listening to. And I think that's something that our listeners can take away with them like right now and actually use that information to reflect. So thank you for sharing that, Mike.
Absolutely, yeah.
What about you, Amber? What do you feel like you lost to alcohol before you lost anything big, before any big consequences happened? What did it take away?
Oh gosh. The first word that pops to mind is authenticity.
Yeah.
There
Mm,
wasn't.
mm,
It was mask after mask after mask,
yeah,
like the masquerade ball, It's just like, which one do you have to put on today? So authenticity for sure, just my sense of self, which I never, gave the chance. I never nourished that. I started drinking when I was I was in 7th grade. Like I started drinking so young, and it just was a part of my identity for so long. And that's just I thought that was just my identity. And so, it took away my ability to discover how badass I really was.
Right?
It really did. It robbed me of meeting this whole version of myself that is pretty badass. And, I can see that now. It's funny, like we talk about, Mike mentioning, people in your life, and they, will mention certain things. And like what, before, like what was the sort of, what did you notice, early on? I remember having this conversation with my boss. It was a few months before I got sober, and it was a fairly new job. I had only been there for about 6 months. And I was hiding. That was, before in my drinking, I didn't hide it really. I just drank. Like I just poured myself a drink when I got home, and I went out with people, and I pre-gamed, and I did all of the seemingly socially acceptable things that you do. And it wasn't until the end where I was working at this job, the job I had had prior to that, the bar that I worked at, even though, our boss would kind of get on us for drinking as much as we were while we were bartending, it was definitely like a towny kind of bar. And we were taking shots of EO with everybody, and like, oh, your kid learned how to tie his shoelaces, let's do shots. Like it just, whatever reason there was, this new job, was made very clear, like that wasn't a thing. We could have a beer or a drink, maybe two at the end of our shift, when we were done, and we could kind of sit down. And so it wasn't a tolerated thing. And so I started doing Gatorade and dumping out half of the Gatorade and adding vodka to it, and then bringing that to work with me, to stay hydrated throughout my very busy shift. And so, but it was that boss who actually sat me down and specifically had said to me that he was like, "I'm not sure what's going on, but I just wanted to call to your attention that there's seems to be this point in the night when your personality changes." And I was like, "What? I'm sorry?" Like, because before that, it was all just like, showing up late to work, or, totaling a few cars, still functioning, of course, Um, oh yeah, like 3 cars, but
Totally.
never had any serious consequences. I never lost anything as a result except for the car. But anyways, that was like personal. That was like there was something about me that changed, and I didn't even then. It was a few months later, that I got sober, but those seeds get planted. And kind of like mull around in the back of like, okay, because getting up and doing 100 proof alcohol at 5 in the morning to get ready for work was normal to me.
Mhm.
There was nothing not normal about that. I
Right.
mean, some people take prescription medications to function. Like, this is my medication, and I never was like, oh, I'm hungover, I need hair of the dog. It just, like, alcohol was like speed to me. Alcohol, like, woke me up and made me alive, and I honestly 100% believed it made my brain work
Hmm.
better, which I didn't understand until after the alcohol was like the ADHD. It was bringing my brain function down, and slowing it down so that I could think, right? And so anyways, I digressed a little bit. But yeah, so that little piece of just like when people, comment on something, I mean, they're looking, they're on the outside looking in, and um more often times, and especially if they say it with kindness and love, there's something there.
Mhm.
And you should probably look into it and dive into it a little bit. But yeah, it definitely robbed me of my ability to meet the version of myself. There was this like, oh well, it's not that bad, but it wasn't that good. It wasn't that good. It was just mediocre. It was just a mediocre life. And it robbed me of, being able to see that. So
Mhm. Yeah.
Some of that justification, I just want to say real quickly that you mentioned specifically, I relate to so much. It took me back to a place of rationalization where I can
normal.
remember even when my now ex-wife found out about my use of prescriptions. Um, I I have said, this is my medicine, and even if I'm taking it as I
Mm,
dictate, and maybe at whatever, um, I genuinely remember believing that my brain is, I know, different than other people's in some way. I know I've had anxiety and some depression in my life and everything, and I don't believe that anyone is better equipped than I am to medicate that. And that was the answer. And I
mhm,
fucking lived on that rationale.
mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
Yeah,
I
like,
died.
you best, right? So who best
Uh,
to know what
Yeah.
I need to function throughout the day? Like,
Oh, yeah.
That's a really, really common one is like this is
It
I'm
is.
just self-medicating, especially
Mhm.
people who are like, I don't have insurance, can't go to the doctor, don't want to go to a psychiatrist because what might that cause in my life? So I'm just self-medicating and this is how I self-medicate and it's working for me is what they believe. And it's
mhm,
easy to believe if it feels like it is and you don't know any
Right.
different.
You don't know different.
Um, when
Exactly.
I
make
think about what I lost to alcohol, my grandma one time she came to visit and then she went back home and she created remember digital picture frames? I don't even know if those are a thing so much
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
anymore, but she got a digital picture frame and she got a USB card and she actually went through my Facebook and got all of these pictures, not just from our visit, but all the way back to when my kids were babies. And she grabbed these different pictures. And I mean, she took so much time to do this, put them all on this picture frame and sent it to me. And I put it up and I had it plugged in. And every time I walked by it and I looked at those pictures, I felt sick inside. It
No.
was so hard to look at them and it was so depressing and it felt so shameful and it felt so full of regret. And I didn't even really drink heavily when my kids were little, but there were certain ones where like I know I was there because I'm in the picture, but I don't
Mhm.
remember the birthday party. Um, or I don't remember the, you know, whatever, um, whatever event it was. And I remember like I was at certain things and I do remember being there, but the memories are so fuzzy and I just hated that. Or I would look at it and I would just feel shame instead of the joy that I was supposed to feel. I feel like alcohol took away memories, but also took away the joy from the memories that I did have
Mhm.
because there was so much shame underneath it and so much embarrassment. I finally just had to unplug the frame and put it away because I couldn't stand to look at the memories of my own life. And that feels terrible when as a mom, my kids were my world. That's what I lived for. And this was pictures of them and our adventures as a family and camping trips. And none of those memories carried very much joy for me. They carried a lot of shame and humiliation and regret. And that is a massive loss as a parent. And it's not a normal thing to experience that. It it should be that you can look at those pictures and feel joy and feel gratitude that you got to experience that. And I missed that. I didn't get that for a lot of those different things.
Hmm.
As soon as you asked the question, Julie, the first thing that came to my mind was my ability to feel.
Mhm.
Yeah, you just finished talking about joy, but I mean, I used it so to celebrate and to do basically everything. But what it come down to is, if someone passed away, then I would drink. If someone celebrated a birthday, it was an opportunity to drink. And I lost the ability to cope with life the way I needed to cope with life so I could carry on in a positive way. That's what I lost. And I continued to lose more and more of it over time. I think everybody's kind of said this over time. It just gets worse. I don't know anyone who's like over time I drank more, but it got better. Like there's
No.
I haven't heard that story yet. If you're listening and you have one of those stories, I'd be happy to hear it because I'm curious. But that's what I think. If I was to look at it from a very basic perspective, if I lose my ability to feel, I lose my ability to show up in relationships and actually help them grow.
Yeah.
I lose my ability to relate to people in the proper way, in a way that's, Amber mentioned it, authentic to me.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I can look back at it now and wonder why I felt lonely was because I gave up my ability to feel.
Mhm. We don't realize, and I think so many people don't realize this. We know we're numbing the hard stuff. A lot of us drink because we want to numb the pain, the sadness, the grief, the loneliness, the boredom, the all of those things. And we intentionally drink to numb those things. What most of us don't realize at the time is that you cannot selectively numb your emotions. If you are numbing the sadness and the loneliness, you are also numbing the joy and the curiosity and the gratitude and all of those things. And so you become a shell of yourself because you're not actually experiencing your life. And when that comes back after you stop drinking, at first it's overwhelming. And then there reaches a point where you're like, oh my God, I love feeling everything. Like, not always, like some of the pain is bad, but there's even a gratitude to being able to feel the pain because at least you
Yes.
know you're alive,
Well,
Mhm.
right?
think about this. If I drink because I'm socially awkward, I feel socially awkward. And then maybe it's not even I feel socially awkward. Right. And I need it to give me some liquid courage so I can actually go and socialize and do the thing. I drink, I go and I do that. And then I justify internally that this is how I cope and deal with my anxiety and the social awkwardness that I'm feeling. So now I only learn how to approach people in an altered state. And I
Mhm.
learn to trust the altered state, not myself.
Yeah.
And like that's the part that's what I'm talking about when I say missing the feeling. I stopped learning how to actually show up as me, and I start learning how to show up as the liquefied version of me. And that's the one I start believing in. And when I start believing in that version of me, I start abandoning the version that I actually need to take care of.
Yes, absolutely.
That can so I touched on this earlier, and Steve, you're underscoring it for me. And if we're considering the listener who is maybe in that pre-contemplation phase, I just want to again make clear that that is a very clear red flag. Isolation. Okay, so I
Mhm.
talked about the way, and Amber uh, spoke. You put like words to it beautifully. You said it perfectly. What I wanted to say in terms of the masking, um, and just carrying that on, which mask for which situation, all that. That's the inauthenticity Steve's talking about. I believe, that's what takes us out. That is in itself isolating. Just because if we're in a group, if I go out with a bowling group or something, every Wednesday, and that looks like I'm like a social person, a part of the social club, and I'm just smashed and don't remember of any of it. Or even if I do, I'm still not able to relate to people. I'm inherently isolated. I'm not connecting with people nor able to in a sober state, and I'm diminishing my ability to grow that, to foster that capacity for myself.
That's the part, right? So that's the part, especially, and I go back to social anxiety here, because that's a super common
Yes.
thing.
Yeah.
And it's I don't learn how to get better at my anxiety, at dealing with it, at figuring it out, at finding my solutions, at if if I'm throwing a band-aid on it to go and do the thing, even if it's fun. Maybe I'm not supposed to be there. Maybe that's not a thing I'm supposed to do. Maybe I need to figure out what that challenge looks like, because it's the challenge. I'm pushing up against the challenge of something that I feel like I'm incapable of dealing with.
Mhm.
And so I can give a substance to help myself through that, which is fine in small doses. But if I continue to do that, that's the part that, that's the slope that I went down.
Mhm.
And like you said, you'd like to hear the story of for how many people it got better.
Better.
That's what I would
Yeah.
say. Red flag number 2.
Mhm.
Has your issue been progressive? If there's a progressive nature to this, take a beat.
Right.
Really examine this. Really give it some thought.
Mhm. Yeah, so let's take that and run with it. Um, how can someone determine whether or not they actually need to quit drinking? And I would love to also touch on the people who are like, okay, well, I know I probably drink too much, but maybe I can just drink a little. So how can those people actually what do they need to be reflecting on to make that determination of, do I actually need to address this and do something about it and put the energy in to stop drinking?
I feel like I've spoken to that, so I don't want to be redundant, but like the major things, like I said, are those red flags. If those are there, those should inform where you are in the consideration phase. As far as like, well, maybe I can drink a little, you know, test your theory. That's part of contemplating. Test your theory. Can you go without drinking? Can you go to this office party or whatever your particular uses tend to be for alcohol? Put yourself in those situations sober. Can you do
Mhm.
that? No. If so, okay. I don't. I think there are absolutely people out there. Hell, I'm not undermining any of them right now that have the problem, but I know that there are people out there who may have trouble controlling their drinking, who might be able to sometime later in life drink again. And I know I'm like somewhat anomalous in that belief. Um, but like as Amber said early on, I think I totally believe in. I know there's a huge spectrum to this,
Mhm.
so I'm not here to say to some listener I've never met whether or not they can do that. But what I would say is like if it's that much of a consideration for you and it has the kind of weight in our lives that we've all named, test it out. Seems like it's
And
worth
believe the data. That's the hard part, is it's tested out, right? Go
that
ahead,
right
set
there.
some rules for yourself, see how that goes.
Mhm.
But then believe the data, because I set rules for myself an awful lot. And then I'd be like, oh, well, I mean, I was going to not drink, but then this thing happened. So then I had to drink, but that makes sense. Of course I drank and blah, blah,
Sure.
blah. So I
And
would justify every time. I wouldn't just believe the data that said, hey, you should stop. I would make excuses for it instead. So yeah, test it,
Mhm.
see what that looks like. But when you get data, you have to also believe it.
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
that's the
kind of where
point of
I
the
was going to go
exercise.
with that, was that it's like, along that of like, it's like test it, but then, really truly pay attention to what happens in that experience, because so often it's like we've already figured out like how easy it is to rationalize, like, oh, this was just such a long day, and I'm just gonna have this glass of wine. I just need to shut my brain off for a second. And it's like, stop there. Just stop there. And try something else. Try another way to quote unquote shut your brain off, right? Which is really just like self-care, maybe some breathing exercises, take a walk, get physical, do a workout if it's 20 minutes, like do something else to give the parts of your brain that need that break from whatever the stimulus is that is overwhelming you. And then believe like and then see how that feels, right? Because 100% of the time you will accomplish the thing that you're trying to do, and learn better ways to do it, and also not feel like shit the next day. So the just, yeah, believe it, get curious about other ways to unwind, de-stress, go to that social event, you know give yourself permission to be human. Give yourself permission to be overwhelmed and overstimulated, and give yourself permission to not force yourself to be in situations that make you uncomfortable. And so if you're going out to a social event and you're there for 20 minutes and you're like, I can't do this, like I need a drink. Instead of having the drink, listen to your body and leave, and just say, hey guys, it was great to see you. I'm not feeling so great. I'm actually going to head out and go home, because you're human and you're, and you can work through, okay, what is that about? What is that
Mhm.
social anxiety about? And you can do the harder work down the line. Um, but yeah, just giving yourself permission to feel those things, and not use alcohol as a means to just ignore them. Dig in and see what it's about, um, and give yourself permission to grow, because it's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating what we are capable of, when we don't numb. Um, just real quick, I was going to say I have someone I know from back home. I was telling Steve this yesterday, who had made a post about how proud, how he had been abstaining from alcohol for a really long time, and but he has had some things that have really tested his resolve, and he didn't give in, but he's really thought about it. And someone else had said something about the addiction, and how it's doing push-ups in the parking lot waiting for you to open the door to the gym or whatever. And his response was, I don't have an addiction. I just like alcohol, and um I want to be able to like numb, right? So like the high functioning part is that, like, really what we're doing is just ignoring all of, like, our body is trying to tell us things. We're overworked or overstimulated, or we're sad, or we're lonely, or we're disappointed, and there's all these things going on. And we're just suffocating all of those things, with alcohol, because it's not the addiction to the substance, really. It's just the addiction to not feeling, and not engaging, and not fully um, feeling, really.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So, Julie, you talked about looking at the data. I loved that one. Look at the past data.
Mhm.
Does the past data tell you that you've done the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result? Have you done that already? You might not need to look forward and go and try something new. You might have all of the evidence you need already.
Right.
I mean, if you're
Absolutely.
listening to this podcast,
Exactly.
maybe to be a little bit harsh, but if you're listening to this podcast and you're contemplating, like if you're here listening to us right now, there's a high likelihood that alcohol has affected your life negatively. And I think that's like the first red flag that you really have to look at and give more consideration than you're giving. Had I had given my red flags any more consideration than what I had given them, maybe, just maybe, the old version of me would have done something about it.
Mhm.
But I ignored those red flags. You're here listening. Congratulations,
Yeah.
honestly. And I say that from the bottom of my heart because I'm freaking proud of you. And if you haven't lost a whole bunch of stuff yet, I'm freaking proud of you.
Yeah.
If you're here and you're contemplating and you're trying to find your solutions and you're stuck in the middle of all of the muck of life and you're looking for your solution, I'm freaking proud of you.
Yeah.
Because I didn't look for my solution until it smacked me upside the goddamn face and I needed to stare at it and I needed to stare at consequences. And you can do this without staring at consequences.
Mhm.
There's your red flag. That
Yeah.
is that's it right there. If and you want one more little piece, figure out what need it's meeting.
Mhm.
If you can figure out what need it's meeting, then you know where to start. Because so many people are like, I don't know where to start. What need is it meeting? Ask yourself that like 6 times, 5
7.
times.
The magic number
7 is the
7.
magic number, I know.
It's a journaling exercise I do. You
It
ask
is
why 7
literally,
times.
yeah. But if you really want to know, answer that question as honestly as you possibly can. And really, if you get to level 4, you're doing good.
Yeah, for sure.
But anyways, yeah, that's where I land when I think about that question.
Mhm. Yeah, these are all excellent ways to reflect. And I think I love that we're all sharing a little bit of a different version of reflection because I think everybody arrives at this place from a different place and they need to look at themselves in different ways. So I love that there's a bunch of perspectives and thoughts here. I think for me, when it comes to how can someone determine if they need to stop drinking, I hate the whole "Am I an alcoholic?" question, right? I
Mhm.
think we've all Googled that at 2 AM, I'm pretty sure.
Been there,
That
done
is
that.
not going to answer this question for you. I think that you need to ask yourself things like, "Is alcohol letting me tolerate things that I shouldn't be tolerating?"
Mhm.
Um, Imagine the version of you that you really wanna be, and, like, imagine how you wanna feel in your life. Is alcohol actually moving you towards that, or is it keeping you from achieving that? Is it moving you closer to the version of you wanna be, or is it keeping you from becoming that? Is it causing more good, or is it causing more harm? Is it causing harm that you think about for days and weeks afterwards with regret and shame? Because that harm is absolutely preventable. So I think there's questions like that that need to be asked, and then there's the part where you have to be honest with yourself when you answer those questions, and that part is hard. I remember asking myself those questions and I journal a lot and I would write some of that and it hurt to write the words. Nobody was ever even going to read them, but it was
Mm,
hard to put the pen to the paper and actually write the words to the answers to some of those questions. And that right there, that's the flag, right? That's the okay, like there's something really important here that needs to be looked at and addressed. And gosh, I would just encourage people to, you know, look at these and get honest with yourself and reflect and make changes if you need to before things do continue to get worse. So I'm going to bring us to our closing question here. For the person that's listening right now who's still on the fence about quitting drinking because life does not look bad enough yet, what do you wish that they knew?
I wish for that person to really clarify for themselves what is important to them uh, I gave my really brief synopsis in the beginning. Is this making me happier, healthier, of more service to the people around me? Julie just ran through some several rhetorical questions that, for my intents and purposes, are basically metrics that, to bring it full circle, relate to what would reflect my definition of functionality. So figure out what's important to you, and in doing that, what your definition of functionality is. If it's similar to some of the ones that we've discussed here, then I think there's some pretty clear answers you have. So just look at make sure you're looking at the right metrics, because if your eye's not on the right stuff, we're all so cunning at being able to distract ourselves,
Mhm.
and look at other things. So if you do have areas of success or pride still in your life, um, which I did the entire way through, that can really be a disservice and keep you going. And then last thing I'll say is is just when we usually end episodes with this question. I feel like I'm coming from what Steve said before, and that my reaction is always to that person. I would say, "Dan, like, look, you're gonna be all right if you keep making good decisions, keep listening to shows like this, keep absorbing more information and keeping your mind open to it, because you are so much further down the road than I was. I was so much further down the hole. So I really, part of me has some envy of people, who are considering this decision earlier on. So
Mhm.
for those of us who did not do that, enjoy those extra years of your life and capitalize on that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, to sort of follow on, like, what Steve said, if they're like, if you're here and but you're like, things like aren't that bad yet, or just in general, like things aren't that bad. That sentence alone is not the sentence of someone who is living their best life. Um, that is not to say that life isn't hard. Life is still gonna life. And like when I say, if you're not living a life that is absolutely hands down full of joy, full of like, this is the best life ever, you're doing it wrong. um, because, and like I said, it's not to take away the fact that life's still life, but when you are able to control your inner environment to the point where existing, living, being human, all of the wonderful, miraculous things that take place, on this planet every single day, if that's not kind of how you're living and feeling, then you've got work to do, and there's so much more you can achieve. So, because I was like that mediocre person, right, where it's like, it's not that bad. I still have a job. I have a lot of friends. I get to do some fun stuff. I had no idea how much better life could be. So give yourself, like I said, that there is a voice, because that's what it took away for me. Is it silenced that inner voice. There was always this little me inside, just kind of like, scratching at the walls, like, hey, I'm here, and I want to come out. I want to come out and play. I want to come out and, like, your soul, right? Like, it's like, I want to come out. And you're like, "Shh, no, 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 no. We can't. No, that's not acceptable. We have to do this, this, this. We have to work this job we're not happy at because we got to pay the bills and all this stuff that we tell ourselves, right?" So if you're in a place where you're like, yeah, it's just not that bad. On the flip side of that, maybe it's not that good. And
Mhm.
wouldn't it be really awesome if I had this vision of like aerodynamics in my head when Julie was talking? Because it's like, in aerodynamics, right? It's just, it could be the tiniest little, it could be a rivet, it could be a something. And so it does not
Mhm.
have to be causing this massive chaos in your life to still be affecting your aerodynamics in life, in your trajectory, and on your path. And so if it's not necessarily causing all of this chaos and harm, ask yourself the serious question. Is it giving me what I need to get further, right? The answer is always going to be no, because it doesn't serve a purpose, and it doesn't have to completely ruin your life for it not to serve a purpose. And so if it doesn't serve a purpose and it's not propelling you forward, it's not making you faster and more aerodynamic in life, set it aside for a while. Give it a try, see what it feels like, engage with other people who are doing the same here, right? We have our Monday night Zooms and we talk like this for more time, like stuff like that. Give it a try, because it's pretty fantastic. Give
Yeah.
yourself a chance.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think if you're asking yourself if you really need to quit drinking because it's really not that bad, the question is but is it also, is it that good? And I think we as humans, we don't even have the capacity to imagine all of the possibilities. So when you drink, you just close the door on all of these opportunities. You shut down all of these possibilities that you don't even know exist yet. I think sometimes we keep drinking because we're like, yeah, but I mean, even if I quit drinking, it's not going to be that good. Right. Like, here's this thing that I imagine. This is the life that I imagine without alcohol. Like, that's not that good either. You have no idea. Your brain is not capable of imagining things that it simply doesn't know exists. And that was like that's kind of a big, weird philosophical concept. But if you can wrap your head around that, like, if the version of me that was still saying those things, like, it really doesn't feel worth quitting yet, way back like 5 years ago, if that version of me could see who I am now and the life I'm living now and the things I'm doing now, like that, they wouldn't believe that this is me in my life. Because you take away this thing that's literally holding you down, and it opens up so many possibilities, and it gives you the confidence to make things happen that you never would have had the guts to try before. You wouldn't even have had the confidence to think about it before. And slowly but surely, all of this stuff builds up inside of you, and you start creating this version of your life you wouldn't have believed could have existed 6 months prior or a year prior. And you don't even know it's there because you're not giving yourself the chance to find out.
If you're a 1 a day drinker or 2 a day drinker or every other day or every 3 days, like, you probably have a cycle, you probably have a way of doing things that is normal to you that repeats itself. And if you're sitting here contemplating about whether that's something you need to do or not, the longer you wait, the longer you delay meeting the future version of yourself that is going to be proud of what you did. The future version of you is waiting for you to put it down. And that's why you're here. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Amber. Julie, as always. To our audience, hit like, hit subscribe. Go and follow Mike on Instagram, CureVine, at CureVine. He posts some really awesome stuff. So anyways, and then you can follow us if you want, or not if you don't want. I mean, like, I don't know. I can't tell
We
you what
post
to
some
do.
awesome stuff too, though. Just
Yeah,
saying,
you
we're on
guys are
Facebook and
definitely
Instagram.
on point than I am.
That is fact. You can follow us on Facebook. We're really active on Facebook.
Yeah.
That's the spot if you really want to get in touch with us or follow us or see what really we're doing, because we're going to start getting involved in the community here locally and showing up at events and stuff like that. We're looking at figuring out what all of that looks like for us right now. And so that, with that being said, when we do have events or things that we're going to go to, we'll be posting it there. That's where you'll find out what we're doing. Anyways, thank you, Colorado, and thank you the rest of our listeners. Colorado has been showing up for us really, really big time, and I think they deserve a shout out.
Absolutely. We love you, Colorado.
Yeah, I mean, they deserve a shout out. They've been showing up really incredibly, and for everyone else, thank you too.
Yeah, we love you. We love all of you.
Yes.
Thank you all for being here.
Yes, absolutely. And have yourself an amazing week, and we'll see you again next week with another awesome episode with a bunch of our allies talking about stuff that matters.